Just days after the shootings for which Kyle Rittenhouse is now on trial, the American media began to weave a narrative. They claimed Rittenhouse had crossed state lines with a firearm, that his mother had driven him to the riot in Kenosha, that he was too young to legally carry a rifle, that he was a member of the Proud Boys. They made every effort to turn the 17-year-old into a trigger-happy white supremacist. As the evidence has shown, every single one of these so-called facts was false. The media's coverage of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial follows a familiar pattern, whether it was Russian collusion, bounties on U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan, or Hunter Biden's laptop. It's about time we stop looking at these incidents as honest mistakes and see them for what they are, a coordinated effort by the left and their media allies to mislead the American people. Friends, it's time for Hold the Line. Welcome to Hold the Line. I'm Buck Sexton. The media is not full of journalists. The Democrat legacy media, corporate media, is full of people who are activists. They are trying to bring about an outcome in American politics. They create what we generally refer to as the narrative, and they have a lot of platforms and a lot of areas to exert their influence. We could call that the apparatus, and this is all meant to control you and to evade accountability and truth wherever necessary, because that's the way they can get power. Welcome to Hold the Line, friends. So, here we have just one of the many stories. Russian bounties, okay? Just take a gander back at this one. New York Times headline in June of 2020, Russia secretly offered Afghan militant bounties to kill U.S. troops, according to intelligence. And there was a huge surge in reporting. Remember, June 2020, an election year, Trump, COVID, a lot of people have a lot of anxiety about what's going on. Here is the media at the time talking about the Russia bounty story.
In our World Lead today, President Trump dismissing the Russian bounty intelligence story as a hoax meant to damage him and Republicans. The president often touts his relationship with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin.
The White House also responding tonight to a bombshell report accusing Russia of offering bounties to the Taliban to kill American soldiers in Afghanistan.
And now you know from this reporting in the New York Times, which has since been confirmed by the Wall Street Journal, that not only does the president know that Russia was paying for American soldiers' deaths.
News. Get this. The Washington Post is now reporting that the alleged Russian bounties to Taliban fighters in Afghanistan are believed to have resulted in the deaths of U.S. troops.
Yeah, that sounds really bad, right? Oh my gosh, Russia is paying the Taliban bounties to kill American troops. First of all, the Taliban would be happy to kill American troops. They weren't doing it for a period of time because there was a ceasefire between the U.S. and the Taliban that did hold for a period. But point here being, was this even true? No, it wasn't true. Headlines walking back the Russia bounty story in April of 2021. You know, after the election, after Biden's victory. NBC News here. Remember those Russia bounty stories? Biden admits the CIA intel is not conclusive. BBC, U.S. spies doubt reports of Russian bounties. Military Times, there may not have been Russian bounties on U.S. troops in Afghanistan after all. Yeah, that's right, friends. They got this one totally wrong. Okay, but there's so many that got stunningly wrong. And remember, it always goes against Trump, right? That's always a part of this, too. If there's a way to attack the right or Trump, that's the direction the story goes in, no matter how false. Then there was the lab leak theory. Remember that one? Oh, it couldn't be a lab leak. It had to be something else. It couldn't be that China tried to cover this up and that it came from a project that was at least through a carve-out, a third party, partially funded by Dr. Anthony Fauci's NIAID. That's not possible, right? Well, that's what they said initially, 2020. Here you go. Watch this one.
This question about the Wuhan lab, we know that it's been debunked.
Those same agencies now have been tapped with investigating one of Trump world's most favorite conspiracy theories.
This week, Donald Trump is still pushing the debunked bunkum, despite his own intelligence community's findings that is simply not true.
And there is simply no reason to believe that is the case. There is no empirical evidence to verify that.
We don't need to invoke conspiracy theories.
This is just another example of the president trying to change the narrative from his own failing.
See? Because if it was China's fault, then it's not Trump's fault in 2020 in the election year. This virus was spreading everywhere. So it was about a blame shift. And it was a conspiracy theory. The lab leak theory was crazy. Totally nuts. The media was sure about it, right? Crazy people saying it only. Now let's go to 2021. After the election, of course, here is fascist Fauci on the lab leak theory.
People forget that. But if you go back then, even though you lean towards feeling that this is more likely a natural occurrence, we always felt that you've got to keep an open mind. All of us. We didn't get up and start announcing it, but we've always said keep an open mind and continue to look. So I think it's a bit of a distortion to say that we deliberately suppress that.
Oh, yeah, sure it is. Open mind now. Open mind. By the way, now the preponderance of the evidence and the experts all say it probably was a lab leak, but you won't see that coming out of Fauci's mouth. It's the worst. Then there was the Covington Nick Sandmann situation. Remember Covington Catholic High School? And you had all these people in the media who were trashing Nick's. This is a young kid. He's on a high school trip to D.C. And they say that he's, well, look at this, what they said.
Some students harassing an older Native American man, a Vietnam vet.
The situation came to a head when that young man there, wearing a Make America Great Again hat, got right in his face and didn't move.
The video appears to show dozens of youths wearing Make America Great Again hats, mocking Native American elder and Vietnam veteran Nathan Phillips.
Yesterday, a Native American man was confronted by young people with Make America Great hats on. There's something wrong with that.
Outrage over this now viral video showing high school teenagers harassing a Native American elder.
When you have the kind of anger that we saw at the Indigenous Peoples March, where a veteran, a Native American man, was, had a standoff with students who were, mocking him.
Yeah, all a lie again. The Native American activist was the one who created the confrontation, got in Nick Sandmann's face, was banging. This is a kid, he didn't do anything, and was banging his drum and yelling in his face. This is an adult going up to a child, effectively. I mean, the kid's a teenager. So, lies. More lies. I got that. But why did they get that one wrong? Because of the narrative, right? Oh, he's a white kid. He's privileged. A Native American elder. The whole thing, right? It falls into the race intersectionality obsession that Democrats have in this country. It's so tiresome and so stupid. And here's another giant lie. We could do giant lies from the media all day. Why didn't media outlets cover the Hunter Biden laptop story, which had a lot of very interesting stuff on there? Well, here's NPR's statement about it. They said they won't cover Hunter Biden's laptop because we don't want to waste our time in stories that are not real stories. And we don't want to waste the listeners and readers' time on stories that are just pure distraction. Distraction? The president's son is a laptop with not just a lot of salacious and weird stuff on it, but also conversations about Chinese money for the Biden family and kicking 10 back to the big guy and a lot of stuff that people actually really should know. And yet they don't. What's that all about? Oh, they weren't allowed to know because they pretended that it was a fake story. And then there were the 50 former intelligence officials that were warning the New York Post the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. These people are morons, by the way. All these intelligence officials, they're total cowards. They're morons. They should be ashamed of themselves. They had no reason to believe this. They just went along with it. Oh, I'm a former intelligence official. So we should tell these people to blank off. Anyway, April 2021, Hunter Biden. Yeah, he's saying, well, I really don't know if it was my laptop. Sure, that's believable.
When they ask you if that was your laptop, you say you don't know, which is hard to believe unless you read the book. Yeah. And then it's kind of like, I'm surprised you have shoes on.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I made it today. Pants were the problem. Pants were the problem. Yeah.
Pants are always the problem,
always the
really.
problem. Yeah. No, look, I really don't know. And the fact of the matter is, it's a red herring.
He does know. He's a liar. And obviously the media is sucking up to Hunter Biden because he's a Democrat president's son. And if this were Don Jr., it would be a story every single night that he's such a screw-up. But as we all know, friends, media is very dishonest. We'll have more on the media's lies surrounding the Rittenhouse trial specifically with senior writer at National Review, David Harsanyi. Let's talk about a potential investment opportunity. If you ever thought about investing in real estate, I want you to take me up on this recommendation. Visit doneforyoubuck.com where you can learn more about my friends at Done For You Real Estate. If you haven't checked them out yet, let me make this easy for you. These guys have found a way to make real estate investing straightforward, and their system flat out works. I know because I'm using it. It allows everyday, hardworking Americans like you and me to finally own investment real estate without all the risk and difficulty of doing it on your own. Can't tell you all the details in this quick commercial, so how about this? Go to doneforyoubuck.com. At the top of the page is a podcast interview I did with Done For You Real Estate, where you can hear my experience with their company in my own words. I'll tell you about it in detail, picking the city, the house, getting the broker, the loan, even getting a tenant in place so I get cash flow coming to me every month. Visit doneforyoubuck.com, listen to the podcast interview, and give my friends a chance to show you what they can do for you. National Review's David Harsanyi joins us next. Of all the willful lies and omissions in the media's coverage of major national news stories, nothing really beats the shocking dishonesty surrounding the Rittenhouse trial. And what's even more shocking is left-wing media is allowed to get away with it. Here to break down some of the heinous lies peddled around this trial, senior writer at National Review, David Harsanyi. David, man, thanks for being with us.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It is remarkable to come across as many people as I have, not just in the media, but even in just day-to-day life, who have very strong ideas about the Rittenhouse trial, and then you quickly find out they believe things that are just factually, demonstrably untrue. I mean, here are some of the things that have been said broadly all across corporate media by folks who are supposed to be the truth tellers in our democracy or whatever. They said that he took an AR-15 across state lines, that he was an active shooter who took his gun to a riot looking for trouble, that he is a white supremacist, that he wore surgical gloves to cover his fingerprints. That's nuts.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of that happened, I think, first reaction when this went down, and then it just became embedded in the sort of narrative that people, talked about when they talked about this situation. So that's problematic when we need people to turn to the media to get the facts. We have just instant reactions that feed into preconceived notions about things, that he's a white supremacist, for instance. I've still not seen, and I saw regular reporters saying that, and I still have not seen any evidence that backs up that assertion. I sometimes wonder how many people in the United States, if you ask them, would know that he shot 2-3 white men and not black men. I doubt, maybe a small percentage would even know that.
I had someone tell me last night that I was wrong about this trial and that it was terrible that he shot black people at a BLM protest. Someone actually said that to me, social setting. So that's what we're up against.
So if I thought the guy had grabbed his gun and went down there to look for trouble, to shoot, he was a white supremacist, he wanted to shoot black protesters, I would be pretty upset about what he did too. It would sound pretty bad to me. But when you really get the story of how it went down, it's nothing like that. And
I just want to say, David, there also seems to be all of a sudden a very letter of the law crowd on the left, which you don't usually see for the people that are pro amnesty and don't believe in the southern border being enforced. I mean, among a lot of laws out there, don't believe in people being prosecuted for the BLM riots in the summer of 2020 for destroying property and other things. All of a sudden, taking an AR-15 across state lines was a big deal. Esquire accused Rittenhouse of terrorist tourism. A 17-year-old crosses state lines with a military-style firearm and allegedly kills 2 people in an act of what could only be called terrorist tourism. Not only was he allowed to walk away from the scene of the crime, he got to go home and sleep in his own bed for a night. I mean, they really hate this kid, and they apparently also really hate crossing state lines, which is a new thing.
Yeah, I mean, they keep throwing that in because it has this ominous sort of, feel to it. I live in the D.C. area. I cross state lines like 4 times every weekend. I just don't think it's that big a deal, considering the kid lived, 50 minutes from the state line. But, with the military-style weapon, first of all, none of that actually matters for the law, right? So it's just repeated to make it sound like he's some sort of mastermind criminal. But I think I saw that what you just showed, that quote verbatim coming from someone else like Chris Hayes or something about state lines and military style rifles. These things become talking points among the left and just repeated over and over again in this Orwellian fashion where people start to believe it. It's just terrible because then you have this void where people don't know where to turn for facts anymore, right? I mean, I think that's a pretty big problem. I wish there was just some news organization that just gave us straightforward news that I could trust and go to get unvarnished facts about situations, but I don't think that exists anymore.
There's also the lie that he was a, quote, active shooter, David, who took his gun to a riot looking for trouble. Here's people in the media. We brought receipts, as they say. Watch.
The 17-year-old vigilante.
Kyle Rittenhouse, a vigilante.
Kyle Rittenhouse, the armed teenage vigilante.
A 17-year-old vigilante, arguably a domestic terrorist, picked up a rifle, drove to a different state to shoot people.
Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old kid, just running around, shooting and killing protesters.
You see the 17-year-old who was radicalized by Trumpism, took his AR-15 to Kenosha and became a killer.
I mean, what's amazing, none of those people feel, here's the thing, David, none of those people feel badly about that now, which is what's really, they're not even embarrassed, never mind feel like they're bad people, which they should.
Yeah, I mean, Steve Schmidt at the end over there, it's just a lie. There's no evidence that anything he said there is true, or any of those people. This kid wasn't a vigilante. I mean, I think if there's a prudential case that he should not, that he should not be going there and putting himself in that situation, fine. But in the end, that has nothing to do with the law. I don't even understand why the jury's out this long. If a person can't defend themselves from three maniacs, armed one of them, trying to kill him with a skateboard the other, I just don't understand what the Second Amendment's for. And if you can't go in to protect your community from being burnt down and from rioters, then what's the point of the Second Amendment? I just don't really get it. So I'm confused. And perhaps part of it is that you have all those people just blatantly lying about something. Joe Scarborough, who's like, puts himself up on this perch as some kind of truth-telling, non-ideological force. He's lying on there. And he lied afterwards about other things as well having to do with this case.
It's worse, by the way, it's worse than Joe Scarborough. There's Joe Biden, who's the president of the United States, who also get in on this. This is big lie number 3 about Rittenhouse, David, that he is a white supremacist. This is Biden during the debates. There's no other way to put it. The president of the United States refused to disavow white supremacists on the debate stage last night. Why is there a photo of Kyle Rittenhouse in the now president, then candidate for president Joe Biden's tweet here? That's crazy. Video of it.
Yeah. It's crazy. When it first happened, I didn't know what happened. So if I remember correctly, I withheld comments on what the kid was or wasn't. But maybe it's maybe it's Twitter and the instantaneous need to comment. But everything, frankly, some people know the truth and they're still lying about it. Joy Reid's still up there saying it's racism. People just don't seem to care. Some people. And this happens over and over, right? Where it feeds into the Steele dossier and all these other stories that the media blew. They just have preconceived notions, and then they work to make them become true rather than looking to see if they're true at all. And it's the opposite of what good journalism is supposed to be about.
Big lie number 4, wore surgical gloves to cover his fingerprints. Matthew Modine, an actor that used to do things. Is Kyle Rittenhouse wearing surgical gloves? If so, why? To cover his fingerprints? Why would he load a weapon with bullets, travel to an event, aim the rifle at people, pull the trigger of the rifle, unless he went there with intent to kill? I mean, Matthew Modine is a moron. But again, another thing, they're saying covering his finger. I mean, the kid's on video everywhere. It's covering his fingerprints, though. That's going to, I mean, they're so dumb, David. I'm sorry.
Also, they didn't need to name his gun at anyone until he was attacked, as far as I know. The prosecutor in the trial did more aiming of his gun inappropriately than Kyle Rittenhouse did, right?
There's just no shame in the media anymore. It's all about their team, my team. But David, thanks for being here with us, man. Good to see you.
You too. Thanks for having me.
The outcome of the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse has the potential to have a major impact on how we view the right to self-defense in this country. Coming up, we'll discuss that with editor-in-chief of Bearing Arms, Cam Edwards. I want to tell you about my friends at My Digital Money. Crypto, right, can have huge runs up. You can have a great time investing in crypto if you do it right. Bitcoin, Ethereum, a lot of money to be made. A lot of tokens out there. Where do you start? That's why you need My Digital Money. It's an easy-to-use, self-trading crypto IRA platform with amazing customer service. They've also got an unparalleled military-grade security for your coins. Look, the crypto market's going to get hot again. This could be the best time to get into this exciting technology-based investment. You deserve a team of dedicated professionals who have your back and speak to you like a human. That's what you'll get at My Digital Money. Go to mydigitalmoney.com. Again, that's mydigitalmoney.com. And Cam Edwards joins us when we come back. From the media coverage leading up to the deliberations of the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse, many people were led to believe the defendant was a gun-wielding maniac hunting Antifa members. That's clearly been debunked, as we noted earlier, as has been thoroughly demonstrated, in my opinion. It's pretty obvious Kyle Rittenhouse has a clear-cut case for self-defense. Under cross-examination by the defense, Gage Grosskreutz was asked, "It wasn't until you advanced on him with your gun that he fired." Grosskreutz replied, "Correct." Right there, I mean, charges should have been dropped, right? But here we are. Editor of BearingArms.com and connoisseur of all things self-defense and firearms related, Cam Edwards is here to drop some shells of knowledge. Good to see you.
Hey, Buck, how are you, sir?
I'm all right, Cam. So let's start with this. Because I think there were some moments in the trial where you saw the mentality of the left on display, from the prosecutors, by the way, not just from the crazy lunatic criminals that had attacked and tried to do serious bodily harm to young Mr. Rittenhouse. I mean, here's the prosecutor, Binger, making here's his claim about self-defense. I want to have you react to it.
You can't claim self-defense against an unarmed man like this. You lose the right to self-defense when you're the one who brought the gun, when you're the one creating the danger, when you're the one provoking other people.
So I just want to understand. So if someone's concealed or open carrying a firearm, according to this prosecutor in the state of Wisconsin, if a mob burning things down, attacking people, and menacing everyone on the street wants to assault you, you're open carrying, so you just got to let them beat you to death? Is that the rule? I don't think that's how self-defense is supposed to work, Ken.
It's not how self-defense is supposed to work, but it's exactly how the prosecution described self-defense. I mean, you had James Krause actually say, sometimes everybody takes a beating, right? You just got to take your lumps. And I guess if your head get bashed into the pavement and you realize, oh, I made a mistake. I thought he just wanted to beat me. He didn't want to, now he wants to kill me. I guess that's on you. This is absolutely ridiculous. And I know that Binger's claim, if you listen to that quote again, at the very end, he talks about provocation, right? As if that's the excuse. Kyle Rittenhouse being there in Kenosha with a firearm was provocation to the mob, in essence. Because if you remember, Binger at points talked about how the mob told Kyle Rittenhouse, just get on the property, stay on your property, don't come out on the street. And Kyle Rittenhouse had as much right to be on the streets of Kenosha as the mob did. But in Thomas Binger's mind, I guess when a riot is going on, you lose your rights and you become subservient to the whims of the mob. Well, that's not the law. In fact, I mean, that's mob rule, literally by definition. But that's the standard that Thomas Binger thought that Kyle Rittenhouse should be using that night. And I got to tell you, I mean, what's really kind of concerning is that it's taken so long for the jury to come to a decision. I hope that they're being thorough and consistent and they're going over, every bit of evidence. But I'm with you. Kyle Rittenhouse started with the presumption of innocence, and it was up to the prosecution to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was not acting in self-defense. And I believe that they failed to meet that burden.
Well, here's a little flashback just to look to the facts for a moment here of whether this was self-defense or not. Here is one of the assailant who was shot in the arm, Gage Grosskreutz, explaining in his own words what happened.
When you were standing 3 to 5 feet from him with your arms up in the air, he never fired, right?
Correct.
It wasn't until you pointed your gun at him, advanced on him with your gun, now your hands down, pointed at him, that he fired, right?
Correct.
Can I just point out here, Cam, that it seems to me, I mean, I want your analysis of how that can be anything other than self-defense, but obviously there's also the component of this guy has to tell the truth because there's video and he doesn't want to perjure himself with a video there showing what happened. So he's just describing what we can see in the video.
Yeah, because he didn't tell the truth originally. I mean, that's the thing. He didn't tell police that he had a gun. And then he said that he had dropped his gun. And then on the witness stand, we learned that, oh, no, actually, he had it in his hand. As you say, we knew this because we had the video, but this is the first time that Gage Grosskreutz ever actually said, yeah, I had the gun in my hand, pointed at him. That's when I was shot. That's the first time that he's told that story. And it was, I think, a surprise to the prosecution. There were several witnesses that the prosecution put on that actually ended up, I think, aiding the Rittenhouse defense. Rich McGinnis was another one, the reporter for the Daily Caller, who was right there when Joseph Rosenbaum was shot. And Thomas Binger asked, well, how could Rosenbaum be posing a threat? And he said, well, he yelled bleep you and he was grabbing for the gun. Again, the prosecution bears the burden of proof here. But instead, we saw a lot of supposition. We saw a lot of, fuzzy videos. We saw the prosecution play fast and loose with the facts, with our constitutional rights when they, danced right up to violating Kyle Rittenhouse's right to not talk to the police without an attorney present, when they almost tried to make an issue of that, and the judge warned them. I mean, this is just, I think, it's really been eye-opening, I think, Buck, for a lot of people to see how far prosecutors can go. And sometimes it seems way less about finding justice than just upping your conviction rate.
I also want to ask you, Cam, that they had to take it all the way into court, and late in the trial, they had the judge rule on whether it was a short barrel rifle or not under Wisconsin law. How could they not have known that before? I mean, I think for a lot of people watching this, we're saying they're looking at this as a possible criminal issue, but they haven't even measured the rifle yet. And it was a standard AR-15, so why would they even think it was a short barrel rifle? It's just that part of it. Could you explain that a little more? That seems strange.
Yeah, so part of this was just a general debate over what the Wisconsin law actually said. And the prosecution originally argued that it barred Kyle Rittenhouse from possessing any rifle on the streets of Kenosha that night. But if you actually look at the language of the law, and look, maybe it's badly worded, maybe the law should be go back and they should revise it. But if you look at what the law says, if you are over the age of 15 and it's not a short-barreled rifle, and you meet a couple of other conditions that Kyle Rittenhouse had met, then it is lawful for you to carry a rifle. And it's not just while you're hunting; it's lawful for you to carry a rifle. So then the question became, okay, well, is it a short-barreled rifle? And at that point, I think the prosecution gave up the ghost, because no, it wasn't. And it was pretty clear that it wasn't. But this never should have been charged in the first place. Just like the curfew violation, as it turned out, the curfew had not been imposed when Kyle Rittenhouse was on the streets and these shootings occurred. The prosecution overcharged from the get-go, which is something that the defense brought up during their closing arguments, making the case that, look, this was a politically motivated prosecution. They charged Kyle Rittenhouse with murder 48 hours after these shootings happened, long before any of the video evidence that's emerged as their keys to conviction were ever even available, were ever even known to prosecutors. And so you heard Mark Richards talk about a rush to judgment. And I think that certainly played a big decision in why we even got to this point.
Just want to ask for your response here to this piece in The Atlantic by former conservative David French. He wrote that if the jury acquits Rittenhouse, it will not be a miscarriage of justice. The law gives even foolish men the right to defend their lives. But an acquittal does not make a foolish man a hero. A political movement that turns a deadly and ineffective vigilante into a role model is a movement that is courting more violence and encouraging more young men to recklessly brandish weapons in dangerous places, will spill more blood on America's streets. What do you say to that?
If I were David French, I'd be a little bit more concerned about the prosecution talking about all of the heroes who were on the streets of Kenosha that night, who were busy setting fires, who had torched those buildings the night before. And I'm not talking about those peaceful protesters, the few that were actually there. I'm talking about the violent rioters. That's who I would be more concerned about if I were David French. And, look, calling someone a hero is a subjective term. Is it the first term that I would use to describe Kyle Rittenhouse? No, but I'd probably come to that before I came to villain. Which it seems like that's what David French really wants, right? Don't call him a hero, call him a stupid kid who shouldn't have been there, and it's all his fault that this happened. And that's just not the way I see it. Look, when cities are burning, Americans will respond, whether you like it or not.
Yeah,
that's just how we're built.
He's a good kid who's in a tough situation. We got to leave it there, Cam. But thank you for being with us, my friend. Good to see you. Thanks again.
You bet. Thanks, bud.
Are you fully vaccinated? You might not be for long. Fully vaccinated. According to Dr. Fauci, there's a good chance they could change the definition of what constitutes fully vaccinated. We'll have more on that with Danielle D'Souza Gill when we come back. Let's talk about protecting your most valuable asset, your home. You have homeowners insurance for a good reason. Without it, fire, flood, burglary could destroy you financially. There's another major crime your homeowner's policy doesn't cover, called home title fraud. The FBI calls home title fraud one of the fastest growing crimes, and it can ruin you financially. That's why you need Home Title Lock. Title fraud happens when a criminal forges your signature on documents stating you sold your home to him. Then he takes out loans against your home and leaves you with the payments. You'll spend a fortune in legal fees trying to prove you didn't commit fraud. Home Title Lock puts a virtual barrier around your home's title. The instant they detect anyone, from a cyber thief to a renter to a relative trying to forge their way under your home's title, they shut it down. Go to HometitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim. Enter code RADIO for 30 free days of protection. That's code RADIO at HometitleLock.com. We'll be right back with more Hold the Line. COVID-19 booster shots may become the new standard to become fully vaccinated. According to the lab coat tyrant Dr. Fauci, at least. Reported by the New York Post, Dr. Fauci has said, I happen to believe as an immunologist and infectious disease person that a third shot boost for an mRNA should be part of the actual standard regimen where a booster isn't a luxury. When we look back at this, we're going to see that boosters are essential for an optimal vaccine regimen. The remarks came as New York City and several states this week expanded booster shot eligibility to all adults who were vaccinated against COVID-19 at least 6 months ago. Joining me now, the host of Counterculture with Danielle D'Souza Gill on the Epoch Times, Danielle D'Souza Gill. Good to see you, Danielle.
Good to see you, Buck. Thank you.
So they told us 2 shots and you're done. Don't be unreasonable. Get the 2 shots. Not a big deal. Super safe, super effective. And now it's not that effective. You're going to need a 3rd shot. And we're not supposed to pay attention to the fact that that probably means we'll need a 4th shot.
Exactly. The left always does this. They tell us, if you just get these 2 shots, that's it. You don't have to wear a mask. We can open up the country, go back to normal. So people do that. And then they change the goalpost whenever they get us to do what they want. They change it again. They say, actually, just kidding. It's going to be 3. You get your booster shot, then you can go back to things. Well, once people do that, they're going to move it to a 4th shot and so on. So it's really never ending, not to mention the fact that people, even who've had the vaccine, are continuing to get infected. So I don't see an end coming to this anytime soon. I mean, why would the left stop with booster shots if people are willing to keep allowing them to continue to force us to do this?
There are some who are seeing this in a very different light, fortunately. Down in Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis is saying that these vaccine mandates are about something other than just health. Here's what he says.
The whole reason they launched 15 days to slow the spread, the whole reason the U.S. went down the road that a lot of other places are still trying to pull out of is because they didn't want the hospitals to be overrun. That was the reason they did it. And so you had to make sure you preserve hospital capacity. So that's what they said then. Now they're going to do this mandate, and many nurses could lose their job. So you're actually making the hospitals short-staffed as a result of the mandate. So how does this make any sense when you say you're trying to preserve? This is about power. This is about control.
What do you think, Danielle?
Absolutely. It's about power and control. And I think this shows that people like Governor DeSantis, who are willing to stand up to OSHA and are willing to say, you know what, not here in Florida. We are going to go against government overreach. Not to mention OSHA. I mean, they're supposed to be focusing on things like workers' health conditions. Is the water safe to drink? When did they become the people who get to determine, here is your personal decision about a vaccine? But no, the Biden administration bullied them into doing this. And so that's why they're saying, 100 workers or more, and you have to get this vaccine. Well, the Fifth Circuit that put this on the shelf said, this isn't an emergency. COVID's been around for 2 years. Not to mention the fact that even if this was about an emergency, what makes it different if you have 100 people or more? If this is truly based on science, it wouldn't be based on that. So I think the fact that he is standing up to that is great, and the Fifth Circuit is correct.
Governor DeSantis, by the way, Danielle, trolled Biden a bit. He signed his most recent bill banning vaccine mandates in Brandon, Florida, which brings everybody to think about Let's Go Brandon chants that have been breaking out across the country. For anyone watching, it's, let's say, a reference of sorts to blank Joe Biden chants with different language thrown in the mix. I guess that's the best way I could describe it. But, Danielle, the pushback against the Biden mandate seems strong enough that it really is also being manifested in general discontent about this administration. There's a lot of reasons to be upset about the Biden administration: inflation, the border, more than I could even talk about right now here on the show. But Biden's numbers are down now in the 30s, and looks like he hasn't even hit the basement yet. Feels like vaccine mandates are a part of it, if not a pretty big chunk of it.
Absolutely. I mean, Let's Go Brandon has swept the entire country because that's what everybody wants to say, but they can't say what they really want to say because of censorship and because of the media. But they've started saying Let's Go Brandon. And I personally love Let's Go Brandon. My husband's name is Brandon, so I'm a big fan of the name. But I just think that the people are so sick of being censored. And so the fact that we've even had to resort to saying a phrase that isn't even truly what we want to say shows just how much people aren't allowed to say what they really want to on social media, all these things. So the fact that Ron DeSantis and people are embracing this phrase, Let's Go Brandon, to fight back against, the tyranny from these mandates, from the vaccine, from Joe Biden, I think shows just how powerful the movement is. Everybody's basically heard Let's Go Brandon.
DeSantis also has made some pretty strong statements about his overall philosophy when it comes to vaccination. Florida has been pushing vaccines and monoclonal antibodies for as long as any of the states out there, but does view it as a choice that people should make. Here's what the governor said.
We know, and the data is very clear at this point, COVID vaxes are not preventing infection. Okay, it's just not. Gibraltar is the most vaccinated country on earth. They just locked down their Christmas celebrations. They're not doing it. Ireland has 90+% adults vaccinated. They're reimposing restrictions because you're seeing surges. And so, look, that's just what the data tells us. So to say it should be mandated when you can still get it, this is a personal choice. And so that's what we're doing. And that's the science-based approach to say that this should be a personal choice.
What say you, Danielle?
Absolutely. I mean, we are following the science. The left is not following the science, because if they wanted to truly follow the science, they would be focusing on the treatments for COVID. They would be focusing, as he mentioned, on increasing healthcare workers, not getting rid of healthcare workers. And they wouldn't be focusing on forcing people to take a vaccine that isn't even fully effective, that doesn't even actually prevent the transmission of COVID. And so I think that the fact that Ron DeSantis highlights the fact that not only is he advocating for personal freedom, but also for following the science, shows that, hey, let's look at the numbers of the COVID cases, even in Florida. Whenever it goes against the left's narrative, they don't want to report on that. But whenever they see a state that they want to report on the numbers on, we see that, on the front page. So I don't think that the media is being honest in the true reporting of COVID when it comes to the science.
Danielle, always good to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Well, it looks like Donald Trump dropped his first campaign ad for 2024. We'll bring that to you coming up in Quick Hits. I want to tell you about my friends at My Digital Money first. Everybody who wants to get into crypto has got some ideas, but where do they start? Bitcoin, Ethereum, so many digital tokens out there. Where do you buy this stuff? That's where My Digital Money comes into the picture. It's an easy-to-use, self-trading crypto IRA platform with amazing customer service. They have an unparalleled military-grade security for your coins. They can even set up a play money account so you can test the market without actually risking cash. Listen, the crypto market's heating up. This could be a great time to get into this exciting technology-based investment. When it comes to your money, you deserve a team of dedicated professionals who have your back, speak to you honestly, and treat you like a human, not a number. Check them out at mydigitalmoney.com. That's mydigitalmoney.com. Bill Maher calls out the left for being too woke, and MSNBC is no longer allowed in the Rittenhouse trial courtroom. I'll tell you why in Quick Hits. But first, let's start with this. There are some liberals out there for whom wokeness is too crazy, and they're willing to say it out loud. It's rare, but there are some of them. They understand that wokeness doesn't even make sense, self-contradictory, it's oppressive, it's tyrannical, it's dumb. And they're trying to tell other Democrats, look, what you're doing is deeply destructive. Supporting this madness, supporting this mental ideological rot in the Democrat Party is only going to have negative consequences. Well, Bill Maher, who is a man of the left, he is a liberal, but he does maintain a baseline of common sense. He was having a conversation with CNN's Chris Cuomo, who is an oleaginous fellow who will do whatever he has to do in order to appeal to the CNN audience. That's the idea there. Here he is saying Bill Maher is telling him wokeness is a problem for the Democrats. Watch.
There's a reason why the term woke has come to signify going too far and doing things that don't make sense. I keep saying this to the Democratic Party. The reason why you are so toxic is because you have become the party of no common sense.
No common sense. None. Lunatics running around telling you that you're crazy. Men can get pregnant. What? No, they can't. Oh, you're a bad person. Yeah. Not woke enough. Not woke enough. Then there's a really strange development today in the Rittenhouse trial. We're still waiting for the jury verdict as I speak to you here. Hopefully they'll come soon, come tomorrow. It won't be a hung jury. It'll be, we would hope, an acquittal. But the judge, Schroeder, in the Rittenhouse trial, he has barred MSNBC from entering the courthouse. Let's just understand, he lays out the facts here that led to this. A news network being told you're not welcome in this court anymore because of conduct of someone associated with your network. It's a pretty big slapdown, even for the commies over at MSNBC. Here's what the judge said happened.
I have instructed that no one from MSNBC News will be permitted in this building for the duration of this trial. This is a very serious matter, and I don't know what the ultimate truth of it is, but absolutely it would go without much thinking that someone who is following the jury bus, that is a it's extremely serious matter, and will be referred to the proper authorities for further action.
And he banned MSNBC as a result of this from the courtroom. NBC, which runs and owns MSNBC, same thing, put out a statement on the jury bus incident. This is what they wrote. Last night, a freelancer received a traffic citation. While the traffic violation took place near the jury van, the freelancer never contacted or intended to contact the jurors during deliberations and never photographed or intended to photograph them. We regret the incident and will fully cooperate with the authorities on any investigation. Look, the reason that we're so on edge about this, so sensitive about it, is because there's been a very clear effort made by the left to intimidate this jury into not doing justice, and certainly not doing right by Kyle Rittenhouse and his constitutional rights and his right to self-defense, but to try to coerce a guilty verdict or at least a hung jury. That's what the coercive effect is supposed to be, and people recognize how damaging this is. That's why any intimidation of the jury must be treated as a severe transgression. On other things, Trump posted a new ad saying Joe Biden is, well, we can watch the ad together.
No one thought that 1 year from the election, the Dow would be up 28.5%.
You've got very strong growth, a terrific employment market.
We have no inflation. Virtually no inflation.
Wages climbed 2.7%. The unemployment rate matched the 50-year low.
Oil prices dropping today, tumbling more than 3%.
President Trump's policies, tax cuts, deregulation, opening energy.
Whether you're a blue-collar or white-collar worker, he's taking care of all collars.
He is rebuilding this economy
in ways experts say was never possible.
The Biden administration faces another crisis amid a growing
It is not a pretty picture here at the pump. The price of gas increasing more than 6% over
You're paying more for everything.
Save America indeed. That's it for Hold the Line. No spin news that Bill O'Reilly's up next. Shields high.